So, hello everybody. I'm not used to talk in public. I'm really just a Koha developer, but I wanted to show you the Perl community, the other community of this conference, so the Koha community. And as I think I'm in front of mostly developers, I will show you the development side of the Koha community. So I will show you the tools we are using and the main thing you should know about us and our development workflow. So I won't go much into detail. You won't see a lot of Perl code, but I will show you some basics in case you will want to dive into our code base. So first, let me introduce myself. I'm Jonathan Druart, aka Joubu on IRC. I have been working on Koha since 2010. I have started at BibLib and I'm now self-employed. I'm sponsored by 3 companies providing Koha support to libraries: BibLib, Bywater Solutions, and PTFS Europe. My role is to bring a long-term vision to the project by making the code more robust and maintainable. It consists in bug fixes, code review, refactoring, writing new announcements, helping people, and so on. So I don't know how many of you have heard about Koha. I will present it a bit. It's an open source library system born in New Zealand in 1999 for the Y2K bug. It can be used by any kind of libraries, from small one to big university libraries. It's used all around the world, and one of its strengths is to be configurable and customizable to answer needs from libraries from different countries. We have what we call system preferences to enable or disable features. Koha comes with 2 interfaces, one for the public and one for the staff users. The one for the staff user allow to catalog record, keep track of patrons, checkout, check-ins, and a lot of other libraries and stuff. And the public interface, which we call opaque, allow people to search the catalog and manage their account. It's hard to know how many libraries are using Koha in the world, but we estimate at least 15,000. However, it's certainly much more than that. And the history of our Git repository contains more than 50,000 commits from almost 500 developers. Like any community, we have weaknesses, of course, but some weaknesses are also strengths. For instance, the size of the community, having 500 different contributors and different ways of coding, means that we need to enforce our integration workflow and our coding guidelines. It makes the code more robust, but at the same time, it slows down things. We still have a lot of inconsistencies. We still lack a proper roadmap for the project. We have difficulties to focus on the same thing at the same time. We still have a lot of legacy code that are critical, but hard to maintain and rewrite. We are not good at keeping an up-to-date and clean technical documentation. So always obsolete. But Koha is a free software, and the product is getting better and better. We introduce tons of features every release, every 6 months. And the code has improved a lot during the last year. The user documentation is excellent. The doc team is managed to keep it up to date over the different versions. Koha is being sold quite easily worldwide. At least it's what several guys are saying. And users are very happy when they migrate from another ILS. And of course, the Koha community is very friendly, and we are welcoming newcomers. Koha used to be based on Apache, MySQL, a lot of Perl, and HTML template, but it has evolved. Now it uses Plaque. Still not a full PSGI app, but we would like to make Koha a module app, but we are not there yet at all. We are supporting MariaDB, relying on DBIX class. We have a co-object-based class that's mainly a wrapper around DBIX. For our REST API, we are using Modulus use and OpenAPI for the specs. For the UI, we are using, of course, template toolkit, Bootstrap 4 for the opaque, and we need to upgrade to 5 one day, maybe. A lot of jQuery code. We have introduced Vue.js last year for a couple of new modules, mainly to keep Koha attractive to new developers. Data tables is a great jQuery library we are trying to use everywhere. Koha needs a search engine to index records. It can be either Elastic or Zebra. If you don't know about Zebra, just use Elastic. You don't need to know about it. RabbitMQ has been introduced 2 years ago to deal with background job. And our own Koha cache module is using memcached and serial. The test coverage is using the usual per module, and we are using both Selenium and Cypress for end-to-end tests. That was not correct. Okay, so I will briefly show you where we are on the web so that you have an idea of our tool. This is the official website. It's a bit outdated, but we are on the way to replace it with something more modern and attractive. The wiki, it contains a lot of information, so sometimes outdated, but it's the first place where you should search for something. The bug tracker, you recognize it, is Bugzilla. We host the Koha Git repository using Git. We are going to move to Forgero soon. And we also have GitHub and GitLab mirrors. A quick note on the statistic using Gitstat. We have a lot of PO files, so translation files, which lead to a huge repository, almost 1.4 giga. We should remove those files from the repository to reduce the size of the repository. We are constantly moving code from controller PL to package and adding more code coverage. You can see on the graph that the activity of the project is increasing over the year. The tests are run by Jenkins. Nothing interesting to say here. And still not the right. Our translation tools is Pootle. We are using it both for both the Koha and the manual. And the manual is available in different languages. It can be downloaded in HTML or EPUB. It's the usual with the docs thing. We also have side projects. They are all hosted on GitLab. We have a dashboard here. We'll talk about it later. Code to run sandboxes. Repository for the QA team and the release team. A modified version of gitbz, which is a small command line tool to interact with Bugzilla. Koha testing Docker is what developers use every day. And some other stuff. So about the dashboard, we have developed a small dancer app to highlight what's going on currently. It shows the statuses of Jenkins, the version of the Debian packages. And we are trying to highlight who is doing what to motivate people. The contributor, the author of patches, the tester, the member of the QA team. So here, still another homemade dancer app. It displays data we collect from Koha installations. It's an opt-in setting, of course. It shows a map of libraries, and it displays the number of checkout, patron, and other data. It also showed some features, the feature the libraries are using, and it can be useful to remove unused feature when we see they are not used. It's another homemade dancer app that split container of patches from Bugzilla. It helps developers to quickly find patches. So to finish with the side project, I've grouped some of them with a very quick and dirty schema. You can see that Koha testing Docker is at the center. So it's it will start up a Docker container with a full Koha installation with the two interface. It contains all the tools the developer need, the release tools, the QA tools, gitbz, and all the other things. It's also used by Jenkins and Koha testing Docker, our sandboxing system. And at the bottom, it uses list4dev to inject data into the database. Installing Koha is very easy. In production, just use the Debian packages. We support the last Debian and Ubuntu version. For development, you should use Koha testing Docker, as I said, is as simple as cloning the Git repository of Koha and Koha testing Docker. You adjust some variables in the file, start up the Docker container, and the two interfaces will be available on port 8080 and 8081. So this is our development workflow, so the integration patch. So before writing the patch, you should open a bug report on Bugzilla. You assign it to yourself if you plan to work on it. When you have attached a patch to the bug report using GitBZ, you change the status to need sign off to tell the community the patch is ready for testing. When it has been tested, can be by anybody, the status is signed off. And at this stage, only the QA team is allowed to pass QA. Failed QA means that the patch doesn't work. Anybody can set this status. The release manager decides to push to master or not. Eventually, the patches are backported into stable branches, and at the end, we close the bug report. There are some things you should know before starting hacking Koha. The source code, the source of Koha is huge. We still have a lot of legacy code, I said it already, because of the long history. We are trying to migrate it, but it's a long process. The code is moving fast, but when you are a developer, it always feels too slow. Because of that, you should not fork, because we will have a hard time trying to keep up with the new major version. Better to contribute upstream still. Don't forget to provide tests for your changes. Yeah, of course. And don't be eager to get your patch pushed to master. It can take some time. A not really useful slide, but you can see the different paths. The most important one we have in Koha. So we have two namespaces for the module. The Koha is the new namespace, and C4 is the historical namespace. What is in Koha should be object-oriented. The next line is for the REST API, the module controller, and the OpenAPI spec. The next two ones, the templates files, so for the staff and the OPAC, and then some example of path for the test, depending on what you want to test. Our core object-based class certainly works its own talk. It's mainly a wrapper around DBIX. We have a singular and a plural class to manipulate individual objects of a set. We expose most of the DBIX class methods. We use autoload for getter and setter, and you can get a core object passing the DBIX object to you from DBIX. The original goal was to be able to instantiate objects easily and write Koha page one new instead of this long line. Then it became the center of a lot of things. Now the REST API is based on it. We also have a test builder module to generate data on the fly for integration test. So it certainly needs a cleanup, and it certainly feels weird to most of you. But it has been really helpful when we decided to move to object-oriented programming and refactor the old code. So maybe we could use Corina for the rewrite one day. If you have a look at the code, you will notice a lot of discrepancies in names. For instance, we have a table in the database named borrowers. This is to store the users. The historical namespace is C4 members. The new modules use Koha patron, so you have users, borrower, members, and patron in the code base. All that to talk about patron. This is the word we use on the interface, so we're trying now to use it everywhere, but the legacy code is still using all the wording. All this coming from differences between UK English, New Zealand English, and USA English. So we have decided now to stick to the USA, the wording they use in the USA. You have the same example with checkout and issue and hold and reserve. The coding guidelines are available on the wiki. The new code should pass Perl tidy, and the world code base is passing Perl critics. You have a lot of other coding guidelines that are listed on this page. So now you know almost everything. You are ready to write your first patch. There is a crash course that will guide you over the different steps. It's embedded into KDD. Those are some aliases and commands you can run. So run the QA script before submitting the patch. It will catch errors or coding guidelines. The Git BZ to apply patches locally or to attach to the bug report, and some Git aliases. If you want to test Koha without having it installed locally, you still can use our sandboxing system. There are several servers hosted by companies that can create sandboxes on request with the patches you want to test. It takes a couple of minutes to start up the Docker container, and then you have access to the two interfaces. It can be useful as well to compare differences between versions or to confirm a regression. And you can even sign off the patches using a form. So it will sign off the patches for you and attach it to the bug report. I said earlier that we do not have a clear roadmap, but there are several topics we all agreed on. We want to keep cleaning the code and to add more REST API endpoints. We want to move the tables we use on the UI to data tables and to use those endpoints for a better user experience. A long-term goal is to make Koha a modular app, but we are lacking resources right now to really focus on it. We are still using CGI session, but on the way to data session, and we really should remove those PO files from the Git repository. The website, the translation server, and the mailing list should also be migrated in the mid to long term. To get in touch with us, there is an entry point on the wiki, but basically it's on IRC and the mailing list. We also have IRC meeting every 2 weeks, where we are trying to move things forward. But of course, real life meetings are better, and we meet once a year in Marseille, in Bib office, and for the PerlKohaCon, and the next one will be in Montreal, by the way. That's it. No questions?
So, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. So, if I want to start hacking on Koha, is there a container also including the test suite like Selenium and everything, or
Everything, just use Koha testing Docker.
very good?
How did you get involved in Koha? You've been doing this for a while, so what's your background?
I was looking for a company providing open source software. And I was in Toulon, and Marseille is just the city next to Toulon. So I just sent an email and they hired me. And that's it.
Another question. What is C4 that you mentioned before?
Ask the guy in front of you.
That's my fault. So when I'm one of the original developers of Koha, so I've been doing it since 1999. And when we started writing it, we started in September, and we had to have a library system that would work for a public library in New Zealand to go live on the 3rd of January. So C4, the old system was called Catalyst 2, C2. So C4 was either going to be twice as good or explode. And so that was the name for it.
Any else? Great questions. Yes, thank you.
Why migrate from Portal to Weblate? What are the differences and what are the advantages to the new one?
Sorry. Yeah, we are going to move to Weblate, of course. Yes, it's why? Because Portal is not maintained anymore, and it's bad. It sucks.
Can you put the KTD README on the screen? Maybe they can start coding.
This one?
Yes.
Which one? I'm not seeing this one? What else? Yeah, so the steps just what? The variables, the to-be colon command, and then you start up. And you have a shell, and that's it. Anything you want to show?
So, any other questions? Yes, out in the back.
What about the move to modulicious application? What will it bring to Koha? Like a lot more.
Yes. Do you want to answer, Thomas?
Hi, my name is Thomas. I'm serving as the release manager for the project right now. I asked Andre if he wanted me to talk during this conference, and he wouldn't answer because he was too busy. So I haven't signed for any talk. But I was amazed by the fact that I've been working on Perl for like, I don't know, 10 years? No, 13 years. And I've never been involved in the Perl community. And this is related to the question. So we have our own ways to do things. And, so we picked DBIX class. When was it? 2015 or something? Before 14. Yeah, but we wouldn't use it as it is supposed to be used. Like, we do our thing, We have our workflow for managing upgrades. So using it as it is designed to be used, it doesn't work for us. And the same goes for everything. Like, we have our own way to use module issues. We have our own way to use most of the things. And I think we need to fill those gaps. Like, we need to start doing things right. Or maybe we have good reasons for using things like we do, and we need to talk about it. That's why I'm excited to be here with the Perl community. So running as a module issues app has to do with doing things simpler, more streamlined. We do many hacks everywhere, and we need to get rid of that. It feels very comfortable when you fire up a new module issues project and just do the right thing instead of what we do. I mentioned DBIX class and the way we do things, but we built Koha objects to wrap around it, and the way we do the API, it's streamlined, it's easy, but it's still our own way, and I think we need to evolve. It's time to do that.
Yeah, well, one more question. How often does Koha do a release? Do you release
every 6 months?
Every 6 months. Yeah. Okay, and are
for
there...
the major release, then the minor every month.
And you do a developer release every month then?
Yes.
Or
yes.
Cool.
And we support 3 or 2 or 3 old versions. 3? Yes.
We run our continuous integration tests and infrastructure against all the supported Debian versions and probably Ubuntu. So we don't say we support them all, but they are running fine. That's true.
Thank you. Just a question about the, let's say, community of developers. Is it centered geographically somewhere? There are a few companies that are more involved than others, for instance, in the project, or is it mostly purely community-based?
Well, I can answer of this answer because I engaged many years ago, and now I freelance. Well, the basic the developer is firm based. There are no exactly the users that do develop, but the users are libraries. The libraries, there are 2-3 people very known that do patch that come in the workflow. But in fact, there are little firm around the world, in USA, in ANZAC section, in Europe, one also for Africa and some for South America, for example. One or two from China. I don't know anyone from Japan. No one from Russia or from Eastern Europe. I don't know anyone from Eastern Europe. Probably someone from UK, Ukraine, but yes, from UK, from Germany, from France. No one from Italy. I don't know in the Italian market of a library system dancers like Koha. From Spain. So it's more, if you base on the sample, it's more a European and USA project with some New Zealand and some from South America. The basic. The firm are not dominant. There isn't a dominant firm. They are all equal, plus minus. We have a fork from PTF, but for probably it's something that we put in an angle and we don't speak about it.
Thank you. Still 2 minutes remaining if anyone has anything further. Or are you all just hungry to go to lunch?
Thank you.
So thank you, everyone.